Rules exist for a reason. They bring clarity, consistency, and meaning to storytelling. When followed, they strengthen a story, making it more engaging and believable. When broken, they can weaken the narrative, causing confusion or inconsistency. A storytelling rule is a writing method so effective that it became widely adopted by writers across the world. While not required, these techniques have stood the test of time because they consistently help stories resonate with audiences. Solo Leveling violated many storytelling rules, which isn't new. Plenty of shows ignore well-known rules when they see fit, but it broke one rule in a way that I've never seen before, and strangely enough, it fits Solo Leveling more than any other story. This rule is called Make Every Character Count, and it's not exclusive just to characters. Every event, every dialogue, and every piece of world building should contribute to the narrative in a meaningful way. I'll tell you why it's so important, how Solo Leveling broke this rule and yet still managed to do so in such a unique way that it became the very reason behind its success. And by the end, I'll show you what Solo Leveling could have looked like if it had followed this rule instead of breaking it. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and you might learn something new from my upcoming videos. To make every character count is to make sure each one serves a real purpose. Just putting a character in the world or a scene naturally gives them some function, but if you want them to leave an impact, they need to add something beyond just being there. They can bring comic relief, add weight, or deepen the story's themes. If developed properly, they can make the world feel richer and more immersive. They can challenge the main character physically or mentally, push back against his beliefs, or support him in ways to make him grow. And if they have their own goals and struggles, that just gives us more to care about in the story. A great example for that comes from Naruto. Naruto wants to be Hokage and Sasuke wants revenge. This means we have two stories to follow, and to make it more engaging, Naruto wouldn't become Hokage unless he saves his best friend, which means both their character arcs need to be resolved in order for the MC to reach his goal. But if we're talking about a series that really nails this, that would be One Piece, as every Straw Hat has their own dream. Luffy wants to be the Pirate King, Zoro wants to be the strongest swordman, and Sanji wants a lot of things, but the point is, they have strong reasons to be there with him. This makes us as invested in what happens to them as we are in Luffy's journey, and because every one of us is different, there is a bigger chance that one of these characters would resonate with us, which helps it appeal to a broader audience. And that's the key. A story isn't just about what happens, it's about who it happens to. The more characters we care about, the more questions we have. And this where Solo Leveling kinda falls short. It doesn't really have side characters that make us feel anything close to what Jinwoo does. And because of that, the entire story leans on him to carry the show. It can be apparent that Solo Leveling's author didn't spend much time developing characters outside of Jinwoo, and maybe the strongest S-rank huntress. For most of the first two seasons, the story is almost entirely focused on Jinwoo, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. This series is literally called Solo Leveling after all, and that's probably why most people didn't mind it. It just made sense. But here's the thing, the lack of development isn't what makes these side characters forgettable. You don't need a ton of screen time to make a character work. Some of the most iconic anime characters like Minato, Shanks, or viewers barely show up, yet they are some of the most loved in their fandoms. I think the reason Solo Leveling sidelines most of its cast isn't just because it focuses on Jinwoo's journey, but because the author knows that at some point they will be left behind. The good thing about Jinwoo is that he's a very active protagonist. He's always diving into dungeons, always pushing himself to level up, and that constant drive is what keeps the plot moving. The choice to make his power growth rapid is what made the story engaging for the most part. Every fight gives him something, whether it's more stats, new abilities, deeper knowledge of the system, or a new shadow to command. He's always evolving and getting stronger, and he has to risk his life against opponents stronger than himself. But here's the issue. Solo Leveling establishes a rule that once a hunter awakens, they can never naturally get any stronger. The only thing they can gain is experience, which means that most hunters stay at the same level for the rest of the story, unless they reawaken. And since Jinwoo is constantly leveling up, it was only a matter of time before he left everyone else so far behind that it barely made sense to include them anymore. Most of the side characters we were introduced to participated in one or two dungeons before fading out of the story completely. Jinwoo's goal is always the same, he's gonna keep entering dungeons, fighting bosses and leveling up, and because of that, the core conflict rarely ever changes, which leads to the story to start feeling repetitive and predictable. Most of the time, we only see other characters when they cross paths with Jinwoo. They react to his power, maybe fight alongside him, then disappear. And this keeps on happening to most of the cast without meaningful development or a role beyond a single battle. And they start feeling less like real people and more like temporary plot devices. Antagonists who seem like major threats rarely last beyond their fight with Jinwoo. And since we already know he's going to win, there is very little suspense. He's had close calls with both mindless monsters and characters with actual personality, but since he always beats them in a single fight, that extra depth doesn't mean much. They all end up as just another stepping stone. Igris, for example, he was introduced as an undefeated knight with a sense of honor and respect, qualities that made him stand out, but in the end he fell like any other monster, defeated in quite the underwhelming way, I would say. And it appears that it's hard to feel like he's any different from other dungeon bosses. Once he became a shadow, he was quickly overshadowed, unintended, by stronger summons, losing what made him special. And with a small change, Igris could have been truly iconic. Imagine if, instead of being beaten so quickly, he had forced Jinwoo into his first real loss. Most antagonists fall into two basic categories: the I kill for fun type, or I am the boss of this dungeon monster. And this isn't just limited to antagonists, it even applies to the closest characters to Jin. Take Jo-hee, for example, his supposed best friend. She stood by him when he was at his weakest, healing his injuries and possibly keeping him alive in the first place. She played a crucial role in the double dungeon where Jinwoo literally sacrificed himself to save her. That moment should have cemented her importance, but after that, she disappeared from the story. I mean, yeah, she's traumatized by the experience, which makes sense, but considering she's a B-rank healer, she could have still been relevant for a little longer, or if not in battle, then at least in Jinwoo's personal life. Maybe he checks on her, maybe they talk, maybe she struggles with guilt over him risking his life for her. Any interaction would have reinforced their bond. She collapses in the double dungeon, forcing Jinwoo to sacrifice himself. She returns for one raid only to be put in danger so he can save her. She reappears just to react to his sudden rise to S rank. And she's not the only one. Han Son-yi, she has no real impact beyond being his love interest. His mother was laying on our bed the moment she was introduced, and even after she was healed, she was never relevant again. But okay, these aren't even hunters. What about those who actually fight alongside him? Take Son Chiul, a mage who uses a sword, something that could have made him stand out. He was one of the few people Jinwoo genuinely respected early on, but the story never does anything interesting with him other than the fight with Kang, and I believe that he could have been reused more often. And even those who stick around longer, like Yo Jinhoo, contribute almost nothing. He's not a comic relief character, he doesn't have any unique or useful ability, he's not even someone Jinwoo needs to protect, so he can't even be a liability. He's just a rich guild leader with daddy issues, I guess. If characters like Jinhoo or Chiyul has something extra, like a skill or a conflict or maybe a compelling dynamic with Jinwoo, they could have helped make the story more engaging and diverse. But it feels like characters only matter when they directly affect Jinwoo or when they are around. The story is so centered on Jinwoo's journey that everything else feels secondary. But there is a lot of potential out there. There are a lot of elements that can help create conflict or a more diverse plot, like other hunters or guilds. We never really see multiple factions with their own agendas or high-ranking hunters shaping the world. There could have been power struggles, guild rivalries, or political tension. Hell, maybe even wars between nations. Each nation has their own top S-rank hunters, and they are deemed more valuable than entire armies. And I believe if that was used, could have made the world feel more alive. There is proof from the story itself. The one time we got something close to that was Dongsu's revenge plot, and it was one of the few times we were sure that if Jinwoo fought Dongsu early on, we would know he had no chance no matter what he pulls out of his ass. He wasn't an enemy in a system-controlled dungeon, so even the system couldn't save him. And you could feel that the extra tension in the beginning of the second season helped make the story more engaging already. And this proves that when solo leveling takes its time to build conflicts properly, it becomes much more compelling. I know that later on, the system, the monarchs, and the rulers introduce bigger ideas, and that there is much more beneath the surface, but you don't have to wait until the third season to make a compelling plot. People don't have that much patience for seasonal enemies, so that's a long time to wait. And even when you get to that point, it's still a classic good versus evil setup, with few unpredictable forces at play. And I would say that the best stories are the ones that keep you guessing, not just about who will win, but how. And in solo leveling in general, we don't have enough active forces shaping the world beyond Jinwoo, the monarchs, and the rulers, or maybe the hunters versus the monsters. And a lot of times, Jinwoo is the one in danger, and we know he's not gonna die, so we can easily predict how things are gonna turn out. I still love the world building and the premise. It's what makes solo leveling stand out in the isekai or reincarnation genre. Okay, so what if solo leveling did follow this rule? Let's take a look at how the series could have felt if more time was devoted into developing the world and the cast. Imagine if Kang was part of a powerful guild that saw false rankers as a threat to them. Perhaps these type of hunters throw guild politics into chaos by joining teams they didn't belong in, or stealing opportunities from real rankers, or take financial goods from them. Maybe that's not exactly against the rules, but Kang sees himself as an enforcer of order, and these fake rules are what let him hunt and kill other hunters under the guise of protecting the guild. Perhaps he starts by testing Jinwoo's power and making the prisoners attack him, watching closely. The moment Jinwoo fights too well for an E-ranker, Kang declares him as a false ranker. He tries to eliminate. Perhaps Jinwoo gets the upper hand and forces Kang to retreat using his camouflage ability, instead of fighting to death and joining the pile of defeated monsters or enemies. And because the system assigned Kang as a target, considering him as an enemy that Jinwoo must eliminate, letting him escape would cause him a penalty, and perhaps that penalty is more severe than the usual punishment. And then perhaps after Kang escapes, he tries to frame Jinwoo as the one who killed the prisoners and gets him into more problems. He also spreads rumors that Jinwoo is a fake ranker and causes him to be targeted by other guilds or maybe other hunters, which not only put him at risk, but also the ones that he cares about, and limits his ability to enter dungeons. Okay, how about Jo-hee? How can we fix that? Alright, so Jo-hee knows Jinwoo only died because her legs failed her. Maybe Jinwoo also believes that it happened because he was the last to vote yes. That night was horrific, and it is very natural for them to be deeply affected by it. Maybe Jinwoo wants to think that it's not all too bad, and he tries to push Jo-hee back into hunting, lying to himself that perhaps it's not his fault. And because he refuses to believe that, he puts her back in danger, gets even severely injured, something that Jinwoo's strength cannot fix. And what if he was the one who invited the rest of the survivors back to another match? The guilt for that would be unbearable. I know that most of you don't even know her name. What if Han was like Jinwoo, an E-rank hunter who couldn't do anything on her own? She knew him before he reawakened. She watched his growth and was fascinated by the rising power. He see her trying her best, pushing forward despite her weakness, and a bond naturally formed between them. Not only would this make Han a stronger character, but it would also make their relationship feel more real. These are just ideas I came up with on the fly. If I truly wanted to fix solo leveling's biggest flaw, I'd have to take time to develop these side characters properly, or even create new ones. And imagine if the author had done the same. But yeah, that's just my take. What about you? Would you change anything, or do you like the way the story is right now? And I've shared my thoughts. Now it's your turn. But before you do that, don't forget to click on the subscribe button. See ya.